The world is not fair, and the sooner you accept this brutal truth, the sooner you can stop being its victim. Right now, while you're watching this, someone less intelligent than you is commanding more respect. Someone weaker than you is wielding more influence. Someone with fewer skills than you is living the life you want simply because they understand the dark psychology of human nature. You've been programmed to play by rules that others broke long ago. You've been conditioned to be nice while others are being strategic. You've been taught to wait for respect while others are taking it. The game is rigged, but not in the way you think. It's rigged against those who refuse to learn its real rules. It's rigged against those who believe fairness exists. It's rigged against those who think good intentions matter more than psychological dominance. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli decoded the true mechanics of power and influence. He discovered why good men finish last and why ruthless strategists rule the world. Today I'm going to share 8 dark psychological principles that will transform you from someone who gets overlooked to someone who becomes dangerously confident, untouchable, and impossible to ignore. But I'm warning you, once you see the matrix of human psychology, you can never unsee it. Once you understand these principles, you'll never be able to play the victim again. Fairness is a luxury for the weak. Machiavelli knew this truth centuries ago. The game of power was never meant to be played fair. In a world driven by manipulation, deception, and control, kindness without strategy is suicide. If you want to rise above the masses, you must learn to be ruthless. In this video, Machiavelli's code reveals the darkest power lessons that separate the rulers from the ruled. If you find value in these lessons, don't just watch. Be part of the empire we're building here on Machiavelli's Code. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Every interaction fuels the rise of this community of power seekers. 1. Fairness is a psychological trap. Here's the first brutal truth. Fairness is a myth, a lie engineered to keep you obedient, weak, and waiting for a reward that will never come. Every time you sit back hoping for fair treatment, someone else seizes what you wanted. Every time you cling to rules that don't exist, others are rewriting the game while you stand still. And every time you expect reciprocity, predators are dissecting your predictability and feeding on it. You've been conditioned to worship fairness as a virtue, but in reality, it makes you prey. Ask yourself, how many times have you poured respect into someone who gave you nothing but contempt? How many times have you carried others who never once lifted you? How many times have you patiently waited your turn, only to watch the ruthless cut the line and walk away with everything? This isn't bad luck. This is programming. You were groomed to lose. Machiavelli warned, men should either be treated generously or destroyed, for they take revenge for slight injuries, yet for crushing blows, they cannot. This isn't about fists or weapons, it's psychological warfare. A shallow wound breeds enemies who wait for revenge, but absolute domination, it silences resistance. It rewires the battlefield. The weak make the fatal mistake of half measures. They offer timid resistance to the strong. They whisper boundaries to the aggressive. They attempt to reason with those who only understand power. And the result? The worst outcome imaginable. You look weak, and you breed enemies who believe they can devour you. Psychological dominance looks different. When someone disrespects you, you don't argue. You don't explain. You impose. You make the cost of crossing you immediate, undeniable, and unforgettable. You never negotiate with people who spit on your worth. You never beg for respect. You structure reality so that honoring you is in their interest, and dishonoring you becomes their downfall. Stop expecting fairness from a world that feeds on power. Stop begging predators to treat you kindly. Start mastering the only language they understand: strategy, leverage, and consequence. 2. Ruthlessness is emotional discipline. Most people think ruthlessness is about losing control, screaming, raging, lashing out like a wild animal. They couldn't be more wrong. True ruthlessness is the opposite. It is ice-cold emotional discipline. Ruthless people don't explode in anger. They sharpen their strategy. They don't react. They calculate. They don't act from wounded feelings. They act from logic, precision, and a relentless assessment of what serves their interests. This is why the emotionally reactive will never hold real power. They are predictable. Push the right button, and they dance like puppets. They hand their power away every time they lose composure. The psychologically dominant, on the other hand, understand a deeper truth. Emotions are signals, not commands. They feel anger. They feel frustration. They feel the sting of betrayal. But they do not obey those feelings. They command them. Consider this. Someone publicly humiliates you, trying to stain your reputation. The reactive person panics, defends, explains, argues, and in doing so, they hand victory to the attacker. But the ruthless? They operate differently. They acknowledge the sting, then ask the only question that matters. What response will inflict the greatest damage on their standing while elevating mine? Maybe they deliver nothing but silence, showing the attacker is beneath attention. Maybe they strike with a cold, surgical correction that exposes the other's foolishness. Maybe they turn the humiliation into an opportunity to display unshakable composure. The key is this: their response is chosen, never triggered. Machiavelli understood this well. Injuries should be inflicted all at once, for lingering harm breeds resentment. In psychological warfare, when you must respond, you do it once, decisively, conclusively. No endless arguments, no emotional back and forth. One move that ends the conflict and leaves no doubt who holds the upper hand. Think of the most powerful minds you've encountered. Do they scream when angered? Do they shatter under provocation? Do they let others hijack their emotions? No. They remain sovereign. They select their battles. They respond with strategy, never with impulse. And that composure, that unbreakable control, becomes a weapon more terrifying than rage could ever be. Master your emotions, or be mastered by them. Let others react. You respond, and let every response be a blade, sharp and decisive. 3. Psychological dominance trumps likability. This truth will shatter the illusion of people-pleasing that you've been programmed to live by. Being respected is far more valuable than being liked. When people simply admire you, they take chances with your feelings. They overstep boundaries. They betray you with small promises because they assume you'll forgive, tolerate, and keep smiling. But when people respect your power, they hesitate. They calculate. They know that your transgression comes at a price. Liked people are safe, predictable, easy prey. Everyone knows they won't respond with dire consequences, but psychologically dominant people, they're dangerous. They're unpredictable. They move with a presence that forces others to be on guard because one mistake could tip the balance of power against them. Look around in your life. Who deserves respect? Is it the nicest person in the room, or the one with such a powerful aura that every word carries weight? The one people consult before making decisions? The obedient follower? Or the one whose approval is like currency? Machiavelli said with poignant clarity, "To be feared is to be loved, if one cannot be both." This doesn't mean becoming a tyrant. It means becoming feared. It means building a reputation that tells the world, "You may not always like me, but you will never forget the price of disrespecting me." Here's the difference in practice. Likeable people say yes to things they resent, fearing disappointing others. Controlling people say no without guilt because their own interests come first. Likable people swallow disrespect and pray it stops. Controlling people confront it immediately and end it. Likable people strive to fit in. Controlling people choose their place, and their very existence is the prize. Likable people explain themselves, hoping to be understood. Controlling people make the decisions and expect others to adapt. The shift from admiration to dominance is seismic. Instead of asking yourself, will they like me if I do this? Start asking, does this action add to my power or diminish it? Instead of obsessing over everyone's comfort, you become comfortable with their discomfort when it serves your mission. Instead of begging for approval, you become the person whose approval others seek. It's not about cruelty, it's about mastery. Build an identity where respect is earned, not given cheaply. Build your dominance by consistently enforcing your standards and protecting your boundaries. Make the world adapt to you. Let others compete for your trust, while you stand tall. 4. Decisive action creates psychological superiority. Here's where most people quietly destroy their influence. They make weak moves often, instead of strong moves rarely. Psychologically weak people constantly bluff. They issue threats they never deliver. They give endless warnings that train others to ignore them. They nag, they plead, they manipulate emotionally, pathetic tactics that erode their credibility. And soon, everyone knows the truth. You're all bark, no bite. Your words become background noise. Your warnings, empty air. Psychologically dominant people are different. They don't waste energy on constant threats. They give fewer warnings, but when they act, it's final, it's decisive, it's unforgettable. Machiavelli captured it perfectly. If an injury must be done, it should be so severe that vengeance need not be feared. In modern terms, when you demonstrate power, you do it in a way that ends the conversation forever. Here's what that looks like in practice. Someone in your circle keeps disrespecting you, interrupting, dismissing, mocking you. The weak response? Begging them to stop, complaining to others, seething quietly while the disrespect continues. And every time you do, you reinforce their dominance. Because they see they can wound you without paying a price. The dominant response? Calculated, cold. You document the pattern, then you strike once, with precision. Maybe you call them out publicly, humiliating them in front of the very audience they sought to impress. Maybe you deny them access to something they value. Maybe you shift the social tide so their behavior turns others against them. The move is disproportionately strong compared to a single incident, but perfectly proportionate to the repeated pattern of disrespect. The effect is devastating. Not only does the offender learn the cost of crossing you, everyone else witnesses the consequence. They see that you don't bluff. They see that when you act with force. This principle applies everywhere. Don't try to constantly prove your worth. Make rare, powerful demonstrations that leave permanent impressions. Don't make yourself endlessly available. Let scarcity remind people of your value. Don't argue your position over and over. Take actions that make your position undeniable. Fewer threats, stronger strikes. Build a reputation not for words, but for decisive, unforgettable action. 5. Perception management is reality control. This is the highest form of psychological influence, realizing that perception is more important than reality. Most people make the grave mistake of focusing only on good, assuming their value will be automatically perceived. This is naive. Human psychology doesn't work that way. People don't probe your soul. They don't study your character. They make snap judgments based on superficial cues, your posture, your voice, your relationships, your reputation. And if you don't control the narrative, someone else will, against you. Machiavelli saw it with merciless clarity. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. For most people you meet, your image is your reality. Your reputation isn't an ornament. It's your weapon. Your perceived value is your worth in their minds. Evolved minds understand this. They don't leave perception to chance. They create it. They control the narrative before it controls them. This isn't fakery. It's strategy. It's choosing the facts you amplify, the stories you tell, and the qualities you highlight so the world sees your image as worthy of respect. Look at social media. Two people achieve the same result. One documents it strategically, framing their competence and highlighting their success. The other remains silent, hoping their work will speak for itself. Guess who gains opportunities, recognition, and influence? The world rewards those who shape perception, not those who hide behind modesty. And it's not just online. In every room you enter, your body speaks before your mouth. A confident stance, steady eye contact, and a voice that conveys authority. These are signals that evoke subconscious respect. Bow down, avoid their gaze, speak timidly, and you've trained them to ignore you. The principle is harsh, but simple. People treat you according to how they've been trained to see you. Perception management in practice means you control the stories told about you by promoting your successes and burying your failures. You elevate your status by associating with influential people and high-profile circles. You cultivate mystery, allowing others to project your power in spaces you otherwise wouldn't express. You project confidence even in the face of uncertainty. Confidence attracts, while doubt repels. Your reputation is your most powerful currency. Protect it like a fortress. Cultivate it like a weapon. Use it wisely. In the game of influence, perception isn't just part of the battle, it's the battlefield. 6. Narrative control is psychological warfare. This is the ultimate power move, controlling not just what happens, but how it gets remembered. Every situation can be framed in multiple ways. The same act can be seen as leadership, or arrogance, confidence, or selfishness, strength, or aggression. The truth doesn't decide which it is. The story does, and the person who controls the story controls the meaning. Most people obsess over their actions but neglect the narrative. This is a fatal mistake. In human psychology, the story often matters more than the facts. Think of any conflict you've witnessed. Who usually wins? Not the one who was objectively right, but the one who told their version first, loudest, and most persuasively. Machiavelli knew this well. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. People don't investigate deeply. They don't study the truth. They rely on simplified stories handed to them by those who controlled the frame. Whoever frames the story wins the belief of the crowd. This means you must master the art of narrative warfare. When you succeed, don't just succeed. Control the story of how you succeeded. When you fail, don't just fail. Control the story of what you learned. When someone attacks you, don't just defend. Counterframe their attack as weakness, envy, or desperation. Here's what it looks like in practice. You cut off a toxic friend who's been draining your energy. They tell people you're selfish, cold, disloyal. If you stay silent, their version takes root. But if you shape the story, I had to set boundaries with someone who disrespected the fundamentals of friendship. Suddenly you're seen not as cruel, but as someone with standards and self-respect. Same action, completely different perception. Advanced narrative control means anticipating how others will interpret your actions and getting there first. You don't wait for their story to spread. You plant yours before theirs ever takes root, because here's the brutal truth. People don't remember the raw events. They remember the story told about those events. So stop thinking only about what you do. Start thinking about how what you do will be perceived, repeated, and retold. Shape the story before others weaponize it against you. Finally, remember that the world doesn't always reward those who play fair. It rewards those who understand the rules of the game and know when to turn into the monster everyone fears. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak, but for those who have the courage to prove themselves. If you want to make your mark on this world, stop playing the good guy and start using the dark lessons wisely. Subscribe now to the Machiavelli's Code channel, like it, and share the video with those who need to hear this truth. Power is not given. Power is taken.